Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Rotoworld Football Show. Where it is Thursday, March 27th, 2025. I am Patrick Daugherty, joined by Kyle Dvorchak and Denny Carter. You may have heard me with a little hitch right there. It's because I was just noticing Tanner Bibby already scratched. Already have a starter scratched. Season ain't even started yet. Tanner Bibby, food poisoning. I don't know what they're eating in Kansas City.
I do. It's Chipotle. He's eating Chipotle. He's the guy who eats Chipotle before every start.
And that would explain a lot.
Yeah.
That explains why the Guardians got rid of him. Is that right? He was in the Guardians at some point, wasn't he?
But he's still in the Guardians. He was pitching in Kansas City today.
Oh, that's Kansas City. Oh, Guardians should have gotten rid of him. Shoot.
Enough about the nation's pastime, if you can still claim that it is. I do. We're here to talk about the real national pastime, NFL football, even in March. Big stuff is happening this week, depending on your definition of big. Giants land, let's stomp. Russell Wilson to the Giants. Stefon Diggs to the Patriots, two big names off the board. We're going to start the show with that. Aaron Rodgers trying to come to terms with the fact that he has to go to a franchise that's not going to coddle him in the Pittsburgh Steelers. Denny with an article on, quote, intriguing tight end target commanders. And then Kyle with an article on some of the rookie wide receivers coming into the league and their potential dynasty value. Some big names, Tet McMillian, Travis Hunter, Luther Burden, Missouri's own. A lot of good stuff to get to today. We will begin. We could have bantered about baseball, but Tanner Bibby's food poisoning already took care of that. There is some football ephemera to discuss this week, and I would describe here's how I would describe this. The NFL's ongoing nervous breakdown over kickoffs. Dude, I don't know, maybe just get rid of the kickoffs. And they're now trying to bring the touchback out to the 35-yard line.
35!
What happened to the game I love? And how are we supposed to get any stats?
Right.
The drive starting at the 35. That's all we care about, the stats. I mean, Denny, am I right? This is a nervous breakdown. Like, instead of fixing the kickoff every year and having it accomplish absolutely nothing, maybe just finally admit defeat and get rid of it. How do you feel about this?
Okay, so here's just for folks who might not be in the know here. Here's what is reported recently about the potential rule change, okay? The NFL projects that its kickoff return rate will rise to between 60 and 70% if owners approve a rule change that places touchbacks at the 35-yard line. They're going to need 24 votes from owners to push this through. And basically, it would make it so that teams have to avoid the touchback. Like, you can't let your opponent start from the 35 every time, right? And so you're going to have to do these little dink and dunk type kicks at the, hopefully inside the 10-yard line. They're obsessed with getting more kickoffs going or kickoff returns going, but they're also obsessed with the safety aspect of it. You have to choose one or the other. You want the safety, or you want more returns.
Kyle, what do you think? I mean, am I correct? I'm very happy with myself for coming up with this.
It's a good one.
The NFL's ongoing nervous breakdown, but yeah, pick a lane, man. Just pick a lane. Yep. I will say, the thing last year is not going to work. The art installation every kick, like the ghost special teamers is weird.
What was that? I don't even know. I said at the Super Bowl party I went to, people were like, "Hey, you'll know about the kickoff."
This is what I was thinking about.
Yep. I don't know anything about it.
And I swear to God, by 2026, I was going to learn the 2024 kickoff rules, and we're just going to keep kicking that can down the road to where, I'll finally be able to explain Super Bowl LXI or something in 2040. That's the problem, is they're just going to keep, as you said, not picking a lane. I put in my notes here, can we please just do this is literally what I put in my notes, the fourth and whatever from your who cares. Do whatever. I don't care where you put it, but do the fourth down. You get the ball back, and it's 4th and 15 or 20 or whatever they supposedly.
You mean in lieu of the onside kick? No, you're kind of changing gears here now.
We should not see almost any more kicking of footballs from a place kick. Get rid of all of them. Get rid of the kickoff. Get rid of the onside, and just go. It's enough. It's enough.
Let's be real. Get rid of the field goals too. I mean, what's the deal?
Okay, I almost said that.
The field goals.
All right, let's pump the brakes a little bit.
Get rid of. Come on.
No more running between the tackles. No more running between the tackles. All right. Outside runs are fine. An outside pitch, cool, but nothing else.
The only thing I do know is, the 22 mannequins on the field needs to go. It never got unweird. And, it was so painfully clear by like week 4, it was a comprehensive failure. Like, we don't need to sit through this for 14 more weeks.
Oh, and here's the crazy part. Nobody on the field knows the rules.
No, ever.
The players have no idea what's going on. The special teams coach's one job is to know the intricate rules that the NFL forces upon them every single offseason. And yet players are just running around like they always do with no regard for the new rules.
I'll tell you when the kickoff should have ended. It was when Ty Montgomery purposely stepped out of bounds, laid down, and touched the football that was inbound to create an out-of-bounds kick. At that moment, kickoffs had peaked, and they were only going to get worse from there because he basically did a tricky, intricate maneuver to force an opponent penalty. Once we had reached that, kickoffs had peaked, and the NFL should have been like, and there it is. That's actually the end of the kickoff era at that very moment.
We are going to delete kickoff as a feature, and the New York Giants are going to delete competing as a feature. Because Brian Dable's on to the 2026 job market guy.
Man.
Yeah.
Sounds like, come on. Like, Russell Wilson joining the quarterback room with Jameis Winston. I guess this doesn't entirely preclude the Giants from using a first-round pick on a quarterback, Denny Carter, but certainly seems to do that. Russ is getting starters money. It's very low-end starters money, but after Jameis got low-end number 2 money, Russell Wilson looks every bit to be the New York Giants starting quarterback for 2025. Fantasy managers got briefly excited when they thought they might get like 4 or 5 Jameis Winston starts with Mr. Malik Nabers because he's clearly just going to funnel him targets. Now it's Russ. Now, Russ has always been a low attempts guy. Very much looked like someone who needed to remain a low attempts guy for the Steelers last year. How do we feel about Russell Wilson to the Giants, especially from the perspective of target hog Malik Nabers?
Not good. I am wondering if and when Russ and Malik Nabers will ever talk to each other, because I feel like there's a pretty good chance that they actually never ever actually exchange words.
No.
It's gonna be terrible. And I'll say, can it get worse for Nabers? And I would say probably not. I know Russ is not good, but he's better than what they had last year with Tommy DeVito, and I don't even remember who the third guy was.
Drew Lock, Tim Boyle.
Tim Boyle. Tim Boyle's the one that I was thinking of.
Tim Boyle's better than all of them. We have to be honest.
Don't you dare.
Daniel Jones. 4 different quarterbacks your rookie year is not great.
Yeah. So Russell Wilson is obviously an upgrade over those. Do we still want Jameis?
Okay, hold on. Stop! Don't meow at us. No.
Wait a second.
You were on Tuesday talking about Justin Fields was clearly better than Russell Wilson last year.
Yeah.
Now we're gonna say he's clearly better than like Daniel Jones. I don't know about that.
All right. Well,
he's better than the amalgamation of all those guys, because the problem was Daniel Jones only played half the season. We got Tim freaking Boyle, 24 or 6 attempts. I wrote the blurb.
I wouldn't say there's that big of a difference. You go, Denny. Sorry.
No, that's fine. I mean, as a fantasy community, obviously, we're going to will Jameis Winston into existence in this offense.
This is great news. If you're like a best ball sicko and we're for some reason drafting a lot of Jameis this week, because Jameis is going to be on the field now actually again, and like not in week 1. He would have been on the field in week 1, but the will Russell Wilson get benched countdown clock starts at the 15-minute mark of the first quarter.
Oh yeah.
So Jameis, he's back. He's back. Round 18 pick. Kyle, am I right?
He's back.
Right? Week 17 is all that matters, baby. And the problem is, it's like Justin Fields last year. It's like Jameis Winston is projected to start in week 8, get benched in week 10, make another start in week 14, but then he gets benched for the rest of the season again. That's the big problem.
Yeah, Russell Wilson. I don't know, man. Like, were there any positives last year with Russ?
No,
I feel like we've examined this many times.
So before the show, looked into it strongly, and the intermediate passing was horrific for Russell Wilson, and that's what we care about with Malik Nabers. Jameis wasn't good either, but he wasn't that bad in the intermediate areas, meaning between 10 and 19 yards. But Wilson was really bad, and so I don't think he can be great for Nabers. And I actually do think Jameis Winston could be great for Nabers.
Yeah, this is just a really, really bad start to Malik Nabers' career from a supporting cast and coaching perspective. Because even if it's a marginal upgrade, kidding aside, he is an upgrade on the core 4 from last year for the Giants, but only just. And Brian Dable is gone. Like, you're not saving your job, and like he's just gone. Even if they go 7-10, like he's gone.
Nope.
There's gonna be a new coaching staff for Malik Nabers, and he's gonna be like mad about targets constantly because Russ has never been able to feed a receiver. Russ has never been a guy who's just like targeting someone 10 to 12 times. Like, he would occasionally be that with DK Metcalf. He would occasionally be that with Tyler Lockett. But like, the problem with Russ from Nabers, every coaching staff comes to the same conclusion with Russell Wilson. This guy can't throw more than 30 times a game. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm going to go totally crazy. I'm going to go psycho if Russ is throwing 37 times a game. And it's all adding up to yet another wasted year for Malik Nabers. In terms of development, the production, of course, was quite good in year one. But yeah, he's a young guy who's going to have to deal with a lot of volatility early in his career.
I feel bad for him because, yeah, he's going to cycle through a bunch of terrible quarterbacks early in his career. Hopefully,
coaches too. He's going to get probably multiple. I mean, he's obviously going to get multiple coaches, but like the next coach isn't going to be set up for success either. So it could be like 4 coaches in 4 years.
But does this take Shedeur Sanders completely out of the picture for the Giants?
I don't think so, but I
think
think
he'd have to fall to the second round now, maybe, Kyle.
No, yeah, I think that's very possible that, or he falls to the pick 28, 29, and maybe the Giants, maybe another team jumps up into the first round to get him, to get that 5th-year option, which is extra valuable on a quarterback, albeit they don't typically make it to their 5th-year option anyways, but having that leverage over them in a position of extreme value like quarterback, yeah, I do think we could see a team jump into the end of the first, and I do think it could actually be the Giants. I think they're probably among the most likely to take him in the second round. I do think it likely takes him off the board in the first. And one other little knock-on effect of this is that they're probably going to get Travis Hunter, which is more competition in what is probably a limited pie of targets, because as you guys pointed out, we don't see teams let Russell Wilson throw the ball. We've seen this for literally his entire career. Is every coaching staff says he's efficient and we want to cap that volume and help the efficiency. If you add another receiving talent, albeit I don't know how much receiver he's going to play, probably a lot, but it's still up for debate. If you add another player to the mix on an offense that probably sucks, that's also not good for Malik Nabers. So quarterback play ceiling just went down. Target ceiling maybe just went down as well. It's just what an ugly team.
Kyle is talking as if Travis Hunter to the Giants is a done deal. Is this true?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, Shedeur is pretty unlikely to go to the Giants. And Carter, I mean, we had Schefter yesterday saying the favorite right now to go to is Abdul Carter. So I think it's like a true 50-50 or better, honestly, that Hunter is the pick at 3 for the Giants.
Real quick, what is more likely? I'll ask this Kyle, because this is kind of his beat right now. What is more likely? Shedeur Sanders goes top 10 or he goes 33 to 40, aka the first 10 picks, 7 or 8 picks of day 2?
I think it's 33 to 40. I still think maybe the most likely is the picks you left out in the middle, which is probably why you asked it. But I do think that, yeah, I think the top of the second is more likely than top of the first. Yeah.
Wow. My man Dion is not going to be happy about that.
No. Well, no, he is happy because, listen, now he knows Dable's out in 2026. I guess he won't be happy about this because now they're not getting Shedeur.
No, I know.
But if
the whole master plan is falling apart.
Well, no, this is perfect because they could get both the Colorado guys. They can get Hunter at 3, and then whatever pick the Giants have to have, it's like got to be 35 or something, right? Like then they get Shedeur there, and then they get Dion in 2026. Honestly, they might hire Dion by October if that's the case.
Dude, yeah, no, listen. If you get both Colorado guys, the head whoever does, if any team gets both Colorado guys, you got it. The head coach has to resign. Yep. They have to resign because they're done.
Dion's plans are measured in centuries. Stefon Diggs in New England, I think supposedly a 3-year, $9 million deal. Kind of a lot of money for the young man at this point in his career, I would say. I don't know what to really say about this. I guess he's the clear-cut number 1 receiver, Denny, for New England, but he's 31 years old. He's coming off ACL surgery. He appeared to be in steep decline even before wrecking his knee. The target competition, or lack thereof, is really acute. I guess it's a really good landing spot for Steph Diggs. If for some reason you were really into the idea of Steph Diggs remaining a target hog in 2025, but are we actually excited about this? I guess we can say that it's keeping him fantasy relevant. We do know that, Denny.
I can't emphasize enough that Hunter Henry led this team in targets last year. So
no, you cannot emphasize that.
That is something that happened. I've looked at it many times, and it's true. And then Pop Douglas otherwise known as DeMario, was second.
Pop Douglas, with a real 1942 Boston Patriot type name.
Yeah,
That's a Flipper Anderson. That's a Flipper Anderson clone for the modern era. That's single game receiving yards leader Flipper Anderson, by the way.
So unless the Patriots do something crazy like draft a good receiver, which
franchise history,
it doesn't seem like they would ever do, especially under Vrabel. I mean, they have no use for good receivers under Vrabel. So it would seem like Diggs is just locked in to like a crazy target profile, and even if he's not 100%, even if he's disgruntled, which no one will ever be more disgruntled than this guy in this team. No. Despite all that, I mean, you lock in 170 targets, probably.
No, timeout. No,
160.
170 is like, even in the 17-game season, that's 10 a game. I mean, that's like upper echelon.
Yeah,
I would say 130 to 140 right now is where I'm starting for Steph. Still kind of on the higher end.
I feel like where you can draft him, it'll be pretty nice from a PPR perspective.
What I'll say here for Steph Diggs before we throw to Kyle, and by the way, it's $26 million guaranteed, which is a lot less than 69, but it's a lot more than what I thought he would get, just to be honest. Where he could just be in DeAndre Hopkins mode, where you look at it on the page and every scenario you see is like, I don't know, I thought he was in decline, but there's no way they don't get him the ball 130 times until the season starts and he just can't run and he can't separate and can't read anymore. And that's how it would happen. I don't think he's too big to fail, Kyle, is what I was saying.
I agree. I don't think he's too big to fail at all. You made it. He's 31. He's got a torn ACL, and it was back-to-back years, which weren't dreadful, but they were clearly not just sub-peak. They were a different player than peak Stefon Diggs. What I will say is last year, Stefon Diggs has always been like almost in that Antonio Brown mold. If he doesn't look like an outside receiver, but he wins like an outside receiver, and he literally does play outside receiver for the majority, sometimes the vast majority of his routes. And last year, because they had Nico Collins, who does not move from the outside, nor would you want him to do that, and Tank Dell, who actually is kind of the same player, small, but can truly win on the outside, they moved Diggs to the slot more often than I think in any season since 2016 or 18, one of those 2 years. And it really did hurt his production. He was essentially playing out of position. He averaged like 1.4 yards per route run from the slot. Target, I think, on like 20% of his routes. Truly not good numbers. He was still really good out wide, 2.4 yards per route run, target on 28% of his routes. Those are like elite outside numbers, but he didn't get to play outside as much as he had ever done before. They also used him underneath way more. He had a career low ADOT as well. As best, like as kind as I can be to Stefon Diggs, he played out of position last year and it didn't work particularly well for him. Patriots don't have anyone worth playing in any position at wide receiver. Wherever they think Stefon Diggs is deployed best, there is not someone stopping him from playing there. And maybe that does sort of work out in a reverse Adam Thielen way. He was obviously moving from outside back into the slot more often when he moved to Carolina, but that move really did change the way he got used and how much the team could target him. And it worked out extremely well for the past 2 years relative to the standard I thought was he's dust. And you could very well make that argument for Diggs, back-to-back years of like 1.8 yards per route run. But if any team is going to be able to just say, we'll move you wherever we need to get you targets, we will target you as often as we can, it was going to be the Patriots.
Denny and Kyle, but Denny first. Wide receiver, PPR points per game. Stefon Diggs finishes as the wide receiver what in 2025?
Well, he was wide receiver 8 before the injury last year.
Stop.
That's because you specified PPR, buddy. He was on pace for like 100 catches.
No, I refuse to believe that's true, but sorry.
He was drawing the target on 27% of his pass routes. I would say points per game, top 12.
I was going to say wide receiver 33. Yeah.
I was going to say 27, I think is where I had settled on.
I would be stunned if Steph Diggs finished as a top 24 PPR receiver.
Wow. I wouldn't be stunned if he got to top 24 because like I said, we kind of saw this with Adam Thielen. He's good, right? He's like 2 yards per route run with the Panthers, which is like our kind of the bar you set for baseline good. Not great, but it's good enough to be a team's low end wide receiver 1 in terms of their target share. But like that's kind of the hope, I think, is that he gets a bunch of targets and he weasels his way into a wide receiver 17 kind of season. And that's, I think, the good outcome, frankly.
This is a world that's cruel to the old, Denny. Cruel.
What do you say? Olave or Diggs?
Olave. Come on, Pat. Choose Olave.
Next.
Do the right thing.
What running backs are going in this range?
It's Diggs. That's an evil question, though.
I know, because you're the number one Olave hater.
It's Diggs. It's Diggs for sure. Over Mr. Chris Olave in 20. Hopefully, Chris Olave can somehow get his health issues sorted out. Really, really unfortunate career impasse he is at. Speaking of impasses, Aaron Rodgers and I don't know, like accepting his fate.
Playing football. Playing football are an impasse.
I was stunned anyone wanted him, but a team appears to want him super badly in the Pittsburgh Steelers. But every day he texts his agent back, what about the Vikings? but what if the Vikings? He just keeps texting, copy and pasting that out of his notes app every day. But what if the Vikings didn't? But should we just draft our Steelers as if Aaron Rodgers is going to be on the team? Like, it seems like everyone's just waiting on this outcome at this point. Ian Rappaport reports he will, quote, likely end up there unless he retires. So it basically seems like he's trying to decide between, can I actually handle rule and order from an organization, or should I retire? But should we be operating in off-season drafts, off-season prep mode, as if Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers?
I think yes. I think that's the right way to go about it. I like what you said at the top of the show, where you said Rodgers is having to come to terms with going to a team that won't coddle him. And we heard that from Cam Hayward the other day, saying like just sign or don't sign.
Just sign, bro. Just sign.
And Tomlin is not going to deal with that nonsense. So I feel like he doesn't want to, clearly, but there was another report from Josina Anderson, NFL Insider, who said that Arthur Smith and Aaron Rodgers watched film together in their recent visit, in his visit to Pittsburgh, and quote, they vibed well.
That checks out among guys. I could see vibing well with Aaron Rodgers. That checks out. We had a report that we think Malik Nabers and Aaron Rodgers would vibe well. Specifically, vibes with it. So I was like, that's a load of crap. Arthur Smith, yep, that one checks out.
And they probably vibed well, and they never talked about football.
Two very, 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 very rich men. You should go to Arthur Smith's Wikipedia if you forget.
Oh yes, that's right. That's right. And I will say though, I don't know. Like, has Rodgers ever truly been in a run-first system? Like New York wasn't, not even close.
Well, no, but he was in systems that were trending ever more that way in Green Bay. I actually do think he's probably mostly comfortable with that. He likes to play slow. Mm-hmm. LaFleur went ever more run heavy. Even when he was winning MVPs, they're pretty balanced with Green Bay. Two-back backfield. I think he'll be okay with that, to be honest.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see. Clearly, he's not okay with something. I guess maybe it's just the money, but maybe truly it's only the almighty dollar being the hang up there. But
guys, we got your the Vikings GM Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. We got your ringing endorsement of JJ McCarthy. Like, why hasn't he come out and said anything? And he said they're happy with their quarterback room right now. How's that for your endorsement?
Right now,
had to put the caveat in. And he said McCarthy has met the bar at every stage. He's like, yep, he's been adequate everywhere.
Oh no!
But they don't think this guy can play.
No.
The thing is, though, I think if they were really that worried, they would have anyone other than Brett Rippon as their backup quarterback right now.
That's true.
But to your point, he heard your guys' request. It was like 72 hours after you guys made this comment. And even after that, he still couldn't really give the full endorsement.
Guys, until they stop saying as of now, right now, these things of this nature, I'm not believing it. Like
Kwesi holds up a newspaper every time he talks about McCarthy. And so does Kevin O'Connell. He's like, look at the date. You can see it's verified that this is the date. And right now, as of this date,
as of this moment, ask me in 3 minutes. I don't know.
Ask us in 3 minutes about intriguing tight ends. We'll be right back after this. The free NBC Sports Now channel is your home for NFL Draft Month with more than 100 hours of draft programming throughout April. Daily coverage includes PFT Live, The Dan Patrick Show, Chris Sims Unbuttoned, and Fantasy Football Happy Hour. Plus, tune in for NFL Draft ranking specials with Connor Rogers and updated mock drafts premiering every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. For more information, go to NBCSports.com/now. Yeah, it's just not that hard to say JJ McCarthy's our starting quarterback.
It is not. It's really, if you mean it, you can say it.
The Giants did it for Russell Wilson, man. You can do it for JJ McCarthy.
That was after the Steelers couldn't do it with Russell Wilson last year. They said, well, we'll see if Russ gets the Steelers treatment, because when they got Russ last year, they said, well, clearly he's a starter. And then like Mike Tomlin like met Russell Wilson. He's like, oh, we'll see. That was my favorite offseason story.
That was the best.
We'll see. I'm not so sure anymore, dog. But we're not so sure about tight ends. Well, I don't know why we're talking about. Why are you guys writing so many articles in tight ends?
You know why?
Okay, well, mine is about rookies, and you'll never believe it. They're entering the league. So
it's March, man. What do you want?
Also,
that was going to be the punchline to my joke. Well, Denny, it is an interesting topic. Tight end is a position where we always are scrounging for an edge, for value, because there's usually 2 or 3 elite guys, then a big jumble. There is a big competitive advantage to finding the guys who are going to tier up. Some of these guys kind of already did tier up. But what is the thesis of your article, and who is the first player you're going to mention, and why is it Dalton Kincaid?
Yeah, no, look, I went into this with an open mind, this exercise of looking at,
well, that's where you went wrong, clearly.
Right. I should have gone in with deep bias against certain players and for certain players. I didn't even mention Taysom Hill, who led all tight ends in targets per route run, because
you can cut it now. Yeah,
I knew how much it would upset Pat, and B, he's coming off a serious injury and he's 43 years old. So I don't know how much that applies, but I went in with an open mind. I look at targets per route run overall, and then I looked again against zone coverage and against man coverage. And man, my guy Dalton Kincaid,
who you've always loved,
who I support, that he popped in every category. This guy's drawing targets everywhere. The problem, guys, is that he only runs around on 65% of Josh Allen's dropbacks. So it doesn't matter.
What's going on there? What could be what's happening in that situation? What's going on in Buffalo, folks? We just don't know.
See, Denny, quite the about face, quite the heel turn. Where Denny's company line for 2 years in Dalton Kincaid had one good game.
One good game.
One good game ever. But you're saying you think he could tier up. You think he could level up. You're going to fall for it again award, basically, for Dalton Kincaid.
I've never drafted Dalton Kincaid, just to be clear.
I never have either. Not even kidding. I legitimately have never drafted Dalton Kincaid.
No, I mean, I see his name on the board. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. Like, no, there's no chance. So what I wrote in the piece is that it's a good thing to file away. Okay, like when this guy is running routes, Josh Allen does target him at a pretty high rate. If he ever gets in a situation where he's running 80%, 90% of the routes, then we're cooking, possibly.
And to both your points, Kyle alluding to the fact or hinting at the fact that the reason he's not running more routes is because they don't trust him to, or they just don't think he's good enough. But it's a tough position, as we always hear. He's only been in the league 2 years. It's not at all unrealistic to expect that route share to increase maybe to 80% in 2020. But it's still a team that has serious problems at wide receiver. So it might not be the single most likely outcome, but it is not an unlikely or improbable outcome where Dalton Kincaid really could tier up, really could be on the field more in 2025. So I do like it, Denny. Jonnu Smith is another guy we're going to be talking about. We're not even going to talk about Jonnu Smith, but he's in the article. Real quick, give us your spiel on Mr. Jonnu Smith.
I mean, this Dolphins offense really changed radically after September because Jonnu Smith, during the season's first month, only ran a route on 47% of Miami's dropbacks. He was only targeted on 17% of his routes. He was basically an afterthought in all fantasy, even deep fantasy formats, right? Then from week 15 and 18, the only tight ends to score more fantasy points than Jonnu Smith were Brock Bowers and Trey McBride. 96 targets over that span. Only 3 tight ends had more. No one was targeted at a higher per route basis. I mean, this guy was hogging targets, and especially against zone coverages, which thankfully for Jonnu Smith, that's all anybody plays against the Dolphins is zone. So he really did, prove to be a really valuable producer last year. I think it's the kind of thing that could carry over.
Jonnu, of course, made entirely irrelevant by the addition of Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. The Dolphins now finally have a real number 3 receiver. No, Jonnu, a glove fit for this offense. I don't think they're about to change the short target approach for Tua. They found the approach that they're going to have to ride for the duration of this Tua contract. Jonnu, some people might not want to be buying into that. I think there's every reason to buy into that and expect maybe not necessarily a full repeat, but Jonnu is not falling from relevance. Denny, a guy we're trying to make happen year after year after year. And he does make it happen anytime they feature him. He's the backup on the Baltimore Ravens. What's his name? What's the case?
Isaiah Likely, yes. So this is the one that is less intriguing than the others because
and that's after Dalton Kincaid, which is impressive.
We'll take a short break. We'll be right back after this. That was a joke.
Oh, okay. I was gonna let you cook.
Sorry.
Yeah. So the problem for Likely is that Mark Andrews is good, and I know that we all have the memory of him completely melting down last year in the playoff game. But if you can remove that memory from your brain with the Men in Black stick or whatever, then you have a guy who is highly efficient in all situations, especially from the slot. So they've been using Likely from the slot, and he's been efficient as far as NFL tight ends go, but not nearly as efficient as Mark Andrews. So they don't really have a reason to deploy him so much. Andrews being back in 2025 means that Likely is going to be a non-factor unless Andrews misses time. He's a boom bust guy, as you guys know. Likely 35% of Likely's fantasy points last year came in 2 games. So it's really all or nothing for this guy.
I'm honestly shocked it wasn't more. That's almost a good sign for Isaiah Likely to me. And he's just a really good role player down the field. I really fantasy and bio, but I actually don't understand why they do not feature Isaiah Likely more. And I could see it kicking up. Mark Andrews not getting any younger, lengthy injury history. We'll see how he rebounds mentally. Really, really rough. 2020, not just the drops at the end of the year. I mean, he was a no-show the first half of the season. So we'll see what happens with those Ravens tight ends. Denny had the floor for a while. Kyle's going to have the floor when we come back right after this. The heat is on this weekend at the Texas Children's Houston Open. Watch Scotty Scheffler and a host of other top-notch golfers this weekend on NBC, Golf Channel, and, of course, streaming on Peacock. Scotty Scheffler. He's still Denny's been saying Scotty's not really that good anymore since he had a kid.
He's not quite as good. He's also really temperamental.
Like why is he like, I would call that ramming. Why is he ramming?
He is not in a great mood. I don't know, lack of sleep with the baby in the house. I don't really know, but my guy is very short with reporters. He's short with people on the course. He's slamming clubs. He's furious out there. I'm not liking it.
Everyone knows golfers are the most entitled people on the entire planet. That is, except for, of course, Denny and Adam, 2 very delightful people. You guys Denny and producer Adam are surprisingly well adjusted for golfers. I'll say that.
I appreciate it.
That's the thing is, like, they're not professionals. Like, as Denny goes to the range more and really
they can actually have fun. Yeah, Denny and Adam are actually allowed to have fun.
Yeah, they enjoy golfing. The thing is, professional golfers don't enjoy golfing.
No, especially the ones on Live. Who I can't even say what.
No. By the way, producer Adam really started to enjoy golf when I gave him my sand wedge to use when we played, and he immediately almost holed a 35-yard chip. So that was really cool.
I think Denny was just speaking Latin. Producer Adam points out Scotty Scheffler tied for 25th after the first round. So tune in to NBC and Peacock to see if I was told he was the best player in the world. To see if Scotty Scheffler can make a run Friday through Sunday. Kyle, a lot of these guys have been making a run up dynasty boards. Wide receiver, always the single most important position in rookie drafts. As running back has gotten more and more volatile every year. Tight ends, very difficult to project. Quarterbacks are not as valuable. My dynasty league, 14 teams. Out of the 14 picks in the first round, usually 9 or 10 are probably receivers. A critically important position. You have your article out. Who is the number 1 receiver you have from this draft class from a dynasty perspective? Maybe not a surprising answer to people.
Yeah, not surprising. It's Tet McMillian. Maybe the only thing that's surprising, I guess there are 2 surprising things about it. One, we're getting a lot of Matthew Golden's team in terms of betting and overall mock drafts, and I don't even have him in the top 5. I'm going to end up having to put him there when he goes like 17th overall. But pre-draft, I don't love his profile. Tet McMillan's I do love. Maybe the only other thing that would be surprising about it is Travis Hunter isn't number 1, and that's purely based on the idea that we just don't know how much receiver Travis Hunter is going to play. I still think he'll play a lot, maybe 70 to 80% of the snaps, maybe a little less than that, depending on what team drafts him. But the thing is, that's the only player that you've had to worry about that, specifically because he may end up playing more defense than offense. Tet McMillian, 30% dominator in the second year, got over 40% the year after that. I think I've seen the Drake London comp a lot in that he doesn't get elite separation, but he just has such a big frame. He works so well in space that he doesn't need a ton of separation because he has such a good catch radius. actually see him like a little more in the Marvin Harrison mold of he works really well in the intermediate and downfield stuff. But we know that when your game is based on not putting a ton of space between you and the defender, Harrison isn't slow. He just doesn't have that 4.39 speed that can separate from any quarterback. And when you have that lack of true top end speed, it puts a little bit of a narrow hole that you have to cross in terms of how you win in the NFL. And we saw from Marvin Harrison, it didn't work out super well. If they had taken Marvin Harrison in the second or third round, even, we'd be like, oh, good, he got 900 yards, scored some touchdowns. He's a flanker. He can, be the team's second or third receiver. That's not what you're paying for with Harrison. It's probably not what you're going to end up paying for with Tet McMillian, either in dynasty drafts or in the actual NFL draft. But I think that's sort of maybe not the floor, right? The floor for a lot of players, they're just not that good. But I think stylistically, that is the floor. And the ceiling is more of that DeAndre Hopkins can just win at any level, is always open, even if he doesn't look entirely open.
Tet McMillian, I think you're describing what is still a viable NFL skill set, but it's a bit of a dying breed. And it's a skill set where I think the real problem is it's so dependent on who the quarterback is.
Mm-hmm.
Where Marvin Harrison, Kyler, he's not going to thread that needle. It's just not something he did. Kyler wants you to go to his Pro Football Reference and say, oh, he completed 67% of his passes. He must be efficient. I'm sure Kyler's very efficient, right? Nope. Surely Kyler has gotten better since his 2019 rookie year and hasn't remained the exact same player. And Drake London had horrible quarterback play his first few years in the league. You need a quarterback who is willing to pull the trigger. Even for the quarterbacks who are willing to pull the trigger, there's a lot of times now offensive coordinators who are unwilling to let them do so. So Tet, we don't know where he's going to land, but shocker, it's always about the landing spot with Tet. I feel like he's particularly sensitive to that. Yeah. Any final thoughts on Tet?
Right. So that, I think Kyle's right on with the, with the MHJ comp. And last year going into the draft, I remember not really caring where Malik Nabers went because he could just get it done, per his profile in college. But I was nervous about where Harrison would go, and Arizona was not a good landing spot for him. So immediately I was kind of reticent on him. I think the same thing with McMillan. I don't know exactly what team I'd want him to go to, but there are certainly teams with quarterbacks where I would immediately say, that's bad. That's real bad. I'm thinking, I don't know. I mean, who do you have him mock to, Kyle?
I haven't done my latest mock draft. It's probably the Panthers. I know I had him Panthers in one of the past two. I might not remember which one.
One of them that I'd be a little bit off.
That would be tough.
I've seen him go as high as the Raiders, which I think is a little too high for him. I think he ends up going close to that top 10 fringe or top 20. But
one of the few guys willing to let it ride. So.
Yeah, right. That feels perfect.
That feels real nice. I'm all in if he goes to the Raiders.
We'd be all in on Geno. Kyle, the second guy on your list is Travis Hunter. The first question is, what is the latest buzz? Is he going to be primarily a corner? Is he going to be primarily a wide receiver? I feel like I'm seeing something a little different on it every day. I guess you think he's going to be primarily a wide receiver if you're projecting him as currently the number 2 dynasty receiver, or is that just truly a gut feel? What are your thoughts and facts on Travis Hunter?
No, we had some buzz at the combine. Not only buzz like, so-and-so talked to scouts, and majority of scouts said he would play primarily wide receiver. But even like GMs, like Browns GM Andrew Berry said they view him as a wide receiver. The Browns don't look incredibly likely to take him, but they truly are in a spot where it seems like they're taking a non-quarterback and they get their choice of Carter and Hunter. It's very possible they go Hunter, in which case we would have some information, literally Andrew Berry telling us what he thinks about him. And that seems to be the consensus, albeit it's not everyone thinks that. And his like metrics as a wide receiver are fine. He's a 3-year player with a true breakout in his 3rd year, early declare. I said just analytically, not stylistically. He looks like a Calvin Ridley type, right? And Ridley had one and a half really good years in the NFL. Injuries and other stuff ended up derailing him, but he was a perfectly fine prospect. But I don't you just cannot in good faith stop the conversation that he looks like the 20th overall pick in terms of even just evaluating him as a receiver. The fact that he can play cornerback at a high level tells you a lot about his overall football acumen and his abilities. It should make us more confident that he is a very good wide receiver. So per the numbers, he's fine. He's probably worth a 1st-round pick. But I think you have to go beyond that and say, not only one, for fantasy purposes, you do have to kind of allot him a decent amount of wide receiver snaps, which isn't a guarantee, but we can be pretty confident he's a really good wide receiver.
I just feel like very old school thinking here, but I feel like he needs to be a corner because my view, if you're going to be a 2-way player, we have so few examples of it. Well, I really have to go back to Deion Sanders, but I just feel like it's easier to be a full-time corner and then a package player on offense than vice versa. Like, I guess you could be like a dime corner. But
that's kind of what I mean, that's what a lot of people have said too. I mean, he's not like small, like a lot of like these like 5'9" kind of nickel corners, but that's what a lot of people have said, right? Is he's the sub package type nickel corner, basically.
This feels like it'd be easier to be a sub package player on offense than defense.
I think that's the case too, but also like if you're an organization, you're trying to squeeze every last dollar out of your draft capital and of what you're paying him, I would really try and push it to the max on both sides of the football, which may be difficult, but like, dude, hire more staff.
Yeah, dude, screw it. Go Ohtani mode. Come on, man.
Yeah.
Be a legend.
Oh, please go Ohtani mode. Be a legend.
Be a legend. Should he go Ohtani mode? Denny, what are your thoughts on Travis Hunter?
Sure, why not? Definitely do that.
Ohtani's not pitching this year, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, the problem with Ohtani mode is that you rarely
we just revealed why it's such a bad idea to go full Ohtani.
Sorry, it's terrible, actually. Yeah, so I'm looking at Travis Hunter's usage at Colorado, and I'm seeing that he did a little bit of everything. In 2023, he ran 65% of his routes from the slot. In 2024, he ran 5% of his routes from the slot. So he used almost exclusively as a boundary guy. And as a boundary guy, he was more efficient, significantly more efficient than as a slot guy. So would you see him, Kyle, in the NFL? Would you see him as a perimeter receiver, or do you think he'd be operating from the slot?
I think he really is the queen chess piece that you can move in any position. He's like 6'1", I think, or like a little over 200. So he's not like a true X body type, but also that true X body type is something that the NFL is leaving behind to a degree anyway. So I really do think he'll move anywhere, especially if he ends up being a sub package player on offense. Maybe that moves him into the slot more manufactured stuff. Mm-hmm. Like my guess for his rookie year though is like a 70% route rate, which isn't great, right? Tet McMillan's going to have probably higher than that. But especially when you think a lot of the routes he runs, he's running them because he's the first read, or he is a designed screenplay type of player. So his routes are more valuable than the average player's route. So I feel solid about taking him in like early best ball drafts and like top of the first round of rookie drafts, like top 5 or 6. There is at least one running back and probably some other players as well. But
Kyle, who's the third player on your list?
I don't even remember. I have to look at my
he's a Buckeye.
Brother, it is a Buckeye. It is Emeka Egbuka. And the thing is, he's another player who the metrics are not elite on. He doesn't have a true breakout. He played 4 years, but it's another player where this is probably true of all players, but some to more or less degrees. You have to look past just the raw. When was his breakout? What was his college dominator? What were his yards per route run? Because he played with Marvin Harrison, who even if you say like he doesn't pan out in the NFL, right, was truly a great college football wide receiver. And maybe it's a thing that his skills just don't translate to the NFL and they kill in college, and then plays with true freshman phenom Jeremiah Smith in his final season, was banged up in his third year, but in his second and fourth year was truly an elite number 2 receiver where I think outside
absolutely love to be an elite number 2 wide receiver in college.
Well, I mean, that's like the Brian Thomas, the Jarvis Landry there.
I know when you're on a absolutely loaded, we're going to see more of this too. We already are the past half decade. Like just because you're the number 2 receiver at LSU or Ohio State does not mean you cannot be a number 1 in the NFL.
Yeah, I know. I think there are, I mean, last year, I think he's probably like the 3rd or 4th. I mean, I have him like 4th in my rankings. There's a few underclassmen who I think could have been better than last year. There's maybe 10 or 15 wide receivers in college football that I think were better than him. The scouting reports are pristine. There's a little bit of he can only play slot, but he was successful on the limited routes he ran outside. Kind of reminds me of like, just remember where we were during the draft. Justin Jefferson, he was Jamar Chase's number 2 receiver in college, and specifically in regards to the ceiling, where I think we say like, oh, well, he's a good high floor play, but there's just not a ton of ceiling with this guy. It's really difficult to project ceiling, especially when you say, oh, guy who got the ball a lot and was efficient probably doesn't have a high ceiling, probably could just cut out that last step and be like, guy got the football a lot, guy was efficient. I don't know what a ceiling is. And maybe it's not the same as a 6'3", 4'3" guy who's got elite athleticism and dominated, but I don't want to rule out the idea that Egbuka has ceiling. So to me, he checks all of the floor boxes. He checks all of the good production boxes, and there's really good excuses for why he didn't hit a ceiling in college. So I'm just kind of giving him a pass for those, essentially.
I think it makes sense. Denny, not to throw you off, did you have a thought on Travis Hunter you wanted to share where I cut you off earlier?
Yeah, just one thing. I was looking into his targets per route run. He was targeted on 24% of his routes in 2024. It's not a ton. Like as far as like a dominant college receiver goes, usually that's in the 28 to 30% range. So I don't know. I don't know if he's like cut out to be like a legit. He's not number one, right, Kyle? He's not number one receiver.
I mean, he could be. It's so difficult to say because, I think his college stats, you could say, like, yeah, I can see how he could grow into a number one, but also his college stats cannot, in terms of offense, cannot truly represent what he was. Like, he was in the film room studying defense the entire week, and it's like, I don't know, buddy, just go out there and run routes or whatever. Like, but the thing is, that will also be a potential problem for him in the NFL, where he could just be a number one corner and a number three receiver in the NFL. So I think he has the talent, like just purely like just vibes-based talent, and we have some data, obviously, to say if he never played another snap at corner, he could be a number one receiver. But you're not going to never have him play another snap at corner. He's too good.
Yeah, Travis Hunter, I feel like just could end up a victim of his own greatness, where it's the era of specialization. Everything's so micro hyper focused that it just might not be the best time to be a two-position player, because then you might not truly reach your ceiling. And it's annoying to like this. I feel like, yeah, guys cannot like shine in that broad-based fashion like they may be used to in sports, but we see it all the time. Like or they can't give a tight end a position where like he's the Joker. Then like just they don't like it, you really need a position in the modern NFL. We're almost out of time, but I have a lot of thoughts on your fourth guy, Kyle, that we're going to get to close out the show. Luther Burden, Missouri's own. I've watched every game Luther Burden's ever played. Frustrating player, but he's like shockingly strong. He reminds me of Percy Harvin, basically. Extremely limited route tree, like kind of like off the charts, like functional strength. Like he's so strong. He has pretty good hands. But I mean, the reason he's not even considered like a surefire first-round pick is I think just really limited route tree at Mizzou. Maybe this is Brady Cook's fault. Maybe it's the coaching staff's fault. What are your thoughts on Luther Burden? Is he looking like a first-round pick right now, currently in the real draft?
Yeah, in the real draft, I think he should be 100% a first-round pick. Like positional value is in favor of obviously drafting a first-round receiver. The production is really good in general. I don't see why he wouldn't be, but in terms of looking at expert mock drafts, looking at the betting markets, I actually don't think he's a favorite to be a first round pick. Like I think he looks like he's going to be a high second. And I think to your point, essentially, he is, or at least in college, was a limited player in that they really did make a ton of effort to scheme him up screens, to get him stuff out of the slot. And when you look at a guy who does that, you can say like, oh, that's just Wandale Robinson or Rondale Moore, but he doesn't quite meet the thresholds of true gimmick usage. Like Malachi Corley last year really did not run true routes. He just ran out there and they found him the football. We have Burden pushing up to the upper boundaries of schemed usage, but not to a point where I think it's a major red flag. I think it's only a minor red flag, which is why I think he should be a first-round pick. I don't think the NFL entirely agrees with me, though.
Yeah, they don't. Not surprised that opinions all over the map on Luther Burden. And he is, from a Wandale perspective, he's a guy where you kind of have to work to get the ball in his hands, but you don't only have to work to get the ball in his hands. And I think the difference between him and a lot of those true gimmick guys is once the ball is in his hands, he really is like a rolling ball of butcher knives. Like, he is like shockingly strong. Like he is really, really difficult to bring down. He's just a unique player, kind of like Travis Hunter. The fit is going to be so important. I mean, it's important for every player. It's going to be so important. For Mr. Luther Burden, it's so important that we end the show. Denny has to get somewhere in the greater, the DMV as it's known.
That's right.
So for Denny Carter, for Kyle Dvorchak, I'm Patrick Daugherty. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back with you next Tuesday.